Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news. It's a Sunday morning, so we've got a mixture of news, some of it a bit speculative, but we'll get into that. Rashford to Arsenal. I don't think there's anything in that, but we'll talk about that. We're going to be talking about Edison Cavani looking for a club in Europe, as well as a bit on Pogba and a few other bits. But we're going to start off with an Erik ten Hag boost. Couple of stories coming in last night. Expected this. If you're not from the UK, Sunday morning papers tend to be different to the normal papers, so there will be journalists who are specifically Sunday morning journalists who will have their take on things. So expected some things on Erik ten Hag, and I would say I'd say he's still firm favourite, not just with the fans. I'd say he's favourite with the bookies, and he's probably favourite to get the job based on where we are at the moment. I'm just still very untrustworthy about United. But there is a couple of updates from two different journalists, two different outlets, and one of them's very positive and one of them's sort of half and half. So we'll get into that. I'm sure we've caught a few of you out today. The clocks did go forward last night. It's not 9:30. Check your clocks. It really is actually 10:30 UK time. So I bet a lot of you have been caught out by that. But we'll fly straight into it. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video. 8 o'clock show tonight. We've got Ricky. He's on the show tonight as well. So we're looking forward to getting his view. Halfway through this international break, moving towards football coming back next week as well. But we're still locked into this managerial chat, aren't we? And just a big reminder as well. If you like your Formula 1 or you want to get into Formula 1, I've dropped the link in the video description for That's Football. That's racing tonight at 6 o'clock. I'm doing a watch along for that before the 8 o'clock show. So link in the description for that. But yeah, let's fly into it. It's still very much about the managerial situation, and we've got a couple of updates to bring you. The Mirror are saying that United, Erik ten Hag has told Manchester United that money won't be an issue if they want him at Old Trafford, but the Dutchman has still been stunned by the club's failure to offer him a contract. Now, look, the Mirror, but what I would say is that I believe that Erik ten Hag is sort of pushing Manchester United. There are other options for him. Even if there aren't any other options, which there are, he still wants to resolve his future. Does he? He wants to know whether he's going to be at Ajax in August, or is he going to be in Germany, or is he going to be in England? And he was interviewed at the start of the week. It was a very good interview. That is universally established. Anyone will tell you that. It was a very good interview for Erik ten Hag. He is the fans' favourite by a landslide. And there is this quiet time now where he is probably in the same position as us, where interviewed at the start of the week, United are putting it out there that they want to interview loads of managers, but none of those interviews are logical apart from Pochettino, who a lot of people don't think we should be going for. So I think Erik ten Hag's sort of probably putting a little bit of pressure on, quite rightly. Also, United have, the same journalist says, United want to speak to other potential candidates like Pochettino and Luis Enrique before they put cash on the table, but ten Hag made it clear he's more interested in making history than more money. Exactly, and I think that's a fair point. He met with United bosses last week to talk about becoming their new manager, and they were impressed by his assurances that getting time to rebuild the team was more important than a fat contract, which is what Erik ten Hag is like Pep Guardiola. Obviously, the money comes with this, with the ability, but it is about the project. It is about what's best for Manchester United. And then there's another report coming in from Jonathan Norcroft, who writes for the Sunday Times, which is, if you're in the UK, the Times would be way more respected than the Mirror, just traditionally. And in relation to football news, I think people would probably lean toward the Times. It's a bit snobby, but the reality is they probably would. And the Mirror do sometimes get things right. But Jonathan Norcroft in the Sunday Times this morning says Manchester United want their next manager to imbue the club with strong playing identity. Man United feeling is some of ten Hag's managerial rivals are more interested in trying to rebuild principally through transfers rather than addressing the playing style. Now, this is a big tick in Erik ten Hag's box. Manchester United feel that some of their candidates would want to spend a lot in the transfer window, whereas Erik ten Hag would be more minded to rebuild the club in the relation to the way that they play. And just before we move on to the next quotes, I think this is really important, and we probably haven't spent enough time talking about this as a community, as a fan base, as a media, anybody. What is the approach to Manchester United? Now, we have spoken about it on this channel. We've said, look, if you go for Pochettino, he's definitely going to want to keep Maguire, Rashford. He'd want to bring Harry Kane in. He'd probably want to bring Declan Rice in. That's a lot of expenditure. Harry Kane's a £100 million player. Declan Rice is an £80 million player. That is a lot of money. I've got nothing against how Pochettino plays football, but he will want those sort of signings. Erik ten Hag, as I said last night, I don't think he will want to buy, or maybe it was Friday night, Harry Kane and Declan Rice. I think he would go, well, I can get you a striker from Germany, I can get you a midfielder from France. What I want to do, I actually only need 3 players this summer. I want to see it centre-back, a midfielder and an attacker. Because to be honest, there's so many players I need to look at in year one, and the most important thing is to sort the style of play out. And that is absolutely spot on. And I don't think we realise this. I got a lot of stick on Friday night because I said I'd only buy 3 players in the summer. I'd like to buy 4 or 5, but 3 key players are the CDM, the centre-back and the attacker. Because we've got a lot of young players coming through that need assessing. We've got a lot of deadwood that needs to go. And we've got a lot of players that are in their last chance as well. So I think that actually the approach, the Erik ten Hag approach, is the right approach. It is, his style of football is better than anybody else's that we're looking at. And he will want to drill into the team how to play football, and that will be year one. Remember, we spoke about phases. We're not winning the title next year. We won't even win a trophy next year, I don't think. But what we will do next year, hopefully, is win hearts and minds in the way that we're trying to play football. So yeah, I think Erik ten Hag is the better option there, and he will be a lot cheaper. But that's not my thing. If FK says, how do we know who Poch wants? Well, he's managed Harry Kane. Harry Kane's available. He loves the Premier League. He loves the Premier League type of player. He loves Marcus Rashford. He'll love Harry Maguire as well. You don't need to dig deep on Pochettino to realise that he's gonna be Brexit FC, isn't he? That's what he's going to be. He's going to want those sort of players. Of course, it's a bit stereotypical. It's a bit of a leap. You have to be stereotypical when you're not dealing in evidence. But I feel Erik ten Hag is going to develop the youth and go for more cheaper signings to develop the club. And I think Pochettino is going to stick with what we've got and add people like Harry Kane to it. And finish 4th and ultimately get the sack in 3 years. I don't know about that. Anyway, there is another quote on Erik ten Hag as well. This is also from Jonathan Norcliffe. The club have stressed it's too early to talk about favourites, and the Pochettino is sure to have a strong case given his work at Spurs, but Man United may have to make a decision quickly on ten Hag, who is attracting interest from a leading German club. I just want to say high five to the community. We were the first people to talk about this on Friday night on the 8 o'clock show, and we've now had a source close to United and a very good journalist backing this up in the next 48 hours. We said on Friday night there's 2 clubs in. Well, we didn't say it. Other people said there's 2 clubs interested in Erik ten Hag. We did a bit of digging, and on Friday night I said that we've been told that the German club is the more advanced club, and basically there's almost an offer on the table, and that the other club I was told was PSG. Some people are saying it's an English club, but the German club is the threat. And that's been verified by Norcroft in the Times this morning. There is a leading German club. I don't know who that German club is. A lot of people think it's Dortmund, but I don't know who that is. But ultimately, again, this evidences that the club want to take their time. And I don't understand this taking the time. I really don't understand why we're about to play Leicester in less than a week and we're still not sure who our manager's going to be. And we're going to miss out on a lot of things if we keep elongating this, and we may well miss out on Erik ten Hag. And as somebody said on last night's show, maybe that's the plan. Maybe they want Erik ten Hag to take another job so they can go, oh, he wouldn't wait for us. But I mean, that's not going to do you any favours. Ending up with PSG scraps is not going to do any favours. But the further line is that Erik ten Hag believed to impressed when he spoke to representatives of Manchester United about the managerial vacancy. His desire is to develop a playing style figured prominently in the plans he outlined to United. And this is just a little bit more from Jonathan Norcroft in the Times, and it's a little bit more about the interview that Erik ten Hag did last Monday or Tuesday, I think it was. I think it actually was Monday. Universally, everybody you speak to, everybody writes about it. Erik ten Hag impressed Manchester United. And the core principles of that impression was his ability to speak prominently about how he will rebuild the football club, how he would do it at Manchester United, how he wants them to play, and what his plans are. And this really impressed United because, on one level, very clear on what he wants to do on the footballing side, and on another level, to be honest, it won't cost them that much money, and that is obviously always going to be a big thing for Manchester United. So in summary this morning, we've had an update on ten Hag. One of you said last night the next brief about Erik ten Hag will be interesting. I expect more today. I wouldn't be surprised if a Romano or an Ornstein or somebody. David Ornstein normally does Monday morning. I think he has the weekend off. But I think there will be, over the next 24 hours, more briefs around the Manchester United managerial situation. One, because there will be. Two, because journalists need to hop on to what is a very hot story. But it looks like those briefs are going to be Erik ten Hag remains the favourite, but Man United are still looking to interview other people. And as long as he retains the favourite status, I suppose that's a positive. On the other hand, as long as Man United are looking at other managers to interview, you worry about the Pochettino threat. But there's not much more he can do. I mean, it's not... Before we move on to the next bit of news, it's not sensationalist or speculation to say that he did a good interview. He did. It's not speculation to say that he was interviewed. He was. And it's definitely not speculation to say that he's the firm favourite for the job and he's the landslide choice for the job from the fans. He really should be being offered the job. I believe he will take it if it's offered to him. That is where we're at. But for some reason, United want to elongate this situation, and I don't know why. But ultimately, if they gave him the job, we could actually start moving for players as well for the summer and start actually looking forward to next season, because reality's going to bite next week, isn't it? Whether we beat Leicester, whether we go and win the next game after that against Everton, we are not probably going to get top 4, and really our season's over if we don't. So the manager situation is something to cling on to for the fans. If we get Pochettino, I'll back him as I have done every manager, but it's the wrong appointment and we're going to see more boring and poor performances this column. I don't want to talk about Pochettino this morning, but I just want to say that if we get Pochettino, already there's that huge element of doubt in your mind, and ultimately no manager's coming into United. The way I look at it is that for Pochettino to be successful, he would have to basically get us in a title race next year playing brilliant football, because there is going to be a rebuild. There will be there will be some more losses next season. If they happen under Erik ten Hag and we're moving in the right direction, I think people will take the losses and say we're moving in the right direction. If they happen under Pochettino, I don't think people will go, yeah, I'll take that, we're moving in the wrong direction. There's just no room for leeway with Pochettino. He'd have to be winning the title next year, and that's not going to happen. It's just set up for failure because the vast majority don't want him. It's just a bad appointment and they can't spin it. They just can't spin it, no matter how much the press want to. Nobody really trusts the press and no one really trusts the club. So for them to win that trust back, they've got to appoint a manager that the fans want, not somebody that they're being forced upon. And that's United's problem, but it's not a hard problem to solve. Just swallow your pride and go with the right manager. Anyway, let's move on. The more I think, the more I like Vieira, says Joyce. Well, that's not going to happen. Calls for Vieira. Yeah, we're not going to get Vieira. Why they wait? Hysterical incompetence, of course, says Rabba. Anyway, look. I know a lot of you have got mothers. In fact, I hope most of you have. You might not know who they are, some of you. I'm not going to dig a hole for myself, but the reality is, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, and I hope you, as their sons and daughters, are spoiling them a little bit today. And of course, for those of us who no longer have them, thoughts with them as well. Could Poch turn Rashford into Kane? Says Tim Silvertunnel. He's not a fucking magician, mate. He's a manager. And so yeah, let's move on. Talking about Rashford, I will bring that in there. It's well timed. So there was a story that came in last night from another Sunday outlet. It's the Sunday People, which is not the Sunday Times. And it's sort of... I like doing this on a Sunday show because we do get stories that are a bit left field, which is, funnily enough, it's where Rashford wants to play off the left. So the People are saying that Arsenal are offering Marcus Rashford a route out of Old Trafford. Now, this is just fanciful. When it came out last night, I was in a group chat and somebody said, let him go because that will stop Arsenal's revival straight away. And I did laugh because I thought, you know what? If Arsenal want a striker and they buy Marcus Rashford, they probably will stunt their revival because he's not a striker. And you've already got wide players in Martinelli and Saka who are playing way better than Rashford. So first things first, let's respect Arsenal and say, why would you want Rashford? Like, what? He doesn't play as a striker and you need a striker. He's not a striker. So he plays wide forward and you've got two that are playing better than him. So why would you give us... And you'd have to give us... I mean, if we sold to Arsenal, we wouldn't do it for at least 60 million. Why would you spend 60 million on Marcus Rashford? So first and foremost, before we say we won't sell to Arsenal, let's not forget, why would Arsenal sign Marcus Rashford is the more querying point. Why would Arsenal want Marcus Rashford? I think it would be a big mistake because he's a big question mark. And ultimately, Man United will not sell Rashford this summer. And I would say, in my opinion, I wouldn't sell him. If he wants to go, he can go. If he wants to stay, I'd give him another year because I wouldn't give him a new contract. He's still got a year left on his contract next summer, and you just sell him then. But United put themselves into this position by letting contracts run down. We should not be offering Marcus Rashford a contract. If he's on 200 grand a week, he will want 300 grand a week, and he doesn't deserve it. So I wouldn't give him a new contract. So if he wants to go, sell him. If he wants to stay and earn a contract, keep him in what I would say is your final year. It's sink or swim. So I wouldn't sell him for those reasons, but I wouldn't be buying him if I was Arsenal, because he's basically going into a sink or swim situation at United, and his form is really bad. So I don't think Arsenal would want him, regardless of what the chat is saying, and I would keep him for another year. I wouldn't expect Arsenal to want him anyway, so I really don't think there's anything in that story. Narc says maybe it's Rashford's PR team spinning narratives again. Well, United need to be wide awake to that the fact that apparently a couple of weeks ago, when there was talk of Rashford thinking about his future, his phone was ringing off with options. I don't think his phone was ringing off with options, because he's got 2 years left on his deal, and United would demand, I think, a fair price for Rashford, 60. I think his price has plummeted a bit like Martial's did. But I think United would still value Rashford around 100 million. So no one's going to give us 100 million. So his phone's not ringing off at all, because no one will buy Marcus Rashford. I wouldn't say... I think he's more appealing than Harry Maguire. I think Harry Maguire's unsellable. But Rashford, we wouldn't get the money we would want. And I don't think Arsenal would want Rashford. There might be some Arsenal fans out that think Rashford's the player he was 2 years ago. We hope he can be that player again, but at the moment, he's nowhere near that player, and I just don't think Arsenal would want him. Maybe I'm wrong, but there we go. But we need to keep him for another year and see what he does under a better manager. And just before we move on to the next story as well, let's not forget, I'm one of these fans that believe there's a good player in Marcus Rashford, but the training was pretty basic under Ollie, and he didn't shine. Like, under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Rashford basically had the freedom to not defend and hit teams on the break and run into space, which is a very basic way of playing football, and he didn't always do it well. Is Rashford going to suit a Ten Hag or a Pochettino system? Hopefully a Ten Hag system, which is more technical, and you've got to move the ball. I mean, there was a great line, I can't remember where I read it, a great line about Erik Ten Hag that came out, I think I saw it last night, where he'd said that pace in football doesn't mean anything if you can't move the ball quickly. And this is a great line, because we get locked into pace. Oh, he's really quick, he's really quick. And I was having this chat about Phil Foden yesterday, and I said, I don't think he's particularly quick. And a lot of people saying he is quick. And we were talking it through on That's Football on the watch-along for the England game. And basically the gist of it was, his sprint pace isn't quick. But on the ball, he's fast, dribbling, moving the ball. And that is where we have made a mistake at United. We've got sprint pace fast players who, when they get the ball, are slow or give it away. And that's what Erik Ten Hag will improve, the ability to move the ball fast. And that's where some of our players will either make it or break it. Mark, thoughts on Barcelona's revival? How do you think Xavi's doing so far, says Ethan Cleverly? I think Barcelona and Arsenal are a lesson to Manchester United, really. Two managers that have gone in, been given the freedom and structure to rebuild the club, and also have a very clear and distinct way of improving their football club through the way that they play football. Obviously, we've got the option to do that with Erik Ten Hag, and that's what we should be looking to do. So, yeah, I'm impressed with them. Just in relation to... So, that's the story on Rashford. There's also a story about Edison Cavani. I think Edison Cavani has been now linked with a move to Real Sociedad, I saw. I don't really care, if I'm honest with you. I think that there's a number of ways of looking at the situation with Edison Cavani. I think one of them is to say that he's massively injured all the time, and he's not a player that we should be looking to rely on next season, when we've not really been able to rely on him this season at all, or last season. But also, we're trying to build something, aren't we? And I just don't think we can do that with Edison Cavani at Manchester United. And he wanted to go in January. It's not even a story for me. If he goes to Real Sociedad or he goes to Barcelona and he stays in Europe, well, it's a contradiction to what we were told a year ago, which is he was homesick and he wants to go back to Uruguay or Argentina. So What I don't really care if he goes to Spain or Argentina. I'm not really bothered. We just need to move him on. He's been an expensive mistake. I said he would be a mistake at the start, and he has ultimately ended up being a mistake. Not the landslide mistake that maybe I thought he was going to be. He has scored some good goals, and he has been a really good player when he's played. And maybe he'll score some important goals in the next 2 months. But his contribution to this team from Christmas to now has been appalling. The amount of games he's missed is just shocking. And we spent many a time talking about Phil Jones, but the reality is Edinson Cavani checked out. I think he checked out at Christmas, and we've seen that in his availability for games. And if he hasn't checked out, you've got to sell him anyway because he's just not there when you need him. I don't think he's in his time he's been here. I think he's hardly played any Manchester derbies. So Cavani just needs to be cleared out of the club. I like him on the pitch. I think off the pitch he's been a trouble for the club, and his injury record, we should have seen it come in. And I would just say to any United scout, there's a little section on Transfer Market where you can check their injury history. Please do it in future. Eric Bailly, you bought 3, and he'd been injured 3 times in the season before you bought him. You've done it with Cavani. I mean, even Varane has injury issues. So look, we need to be buying better. There's no point having a Ferrari on your drive, but it's always got a puncture. Like, you can drive it a bit and it gets a puncture. Like, we need something that we can actually use. And I've always been an advocate of this. You can have a centre-back that's a 9 out of 10 every game, but only plays 50% of your games because he's injured for the other half. And you can buy a centre-back that's 8 out of 10, but plays 90% of your games. I'll go for the 8 out of 10. He might not be good, but he'll play more games, and that's more valuable to the club. It's times on the pitch that matter. To be fair to him, he didn't want to stay, says Emma. No, I don't think he did want to stay, and maybe the club should have let him go, but ultimately they let Martial go, didn't they? And United, and I blame Ollie for this, Ollie lied to a lot of people last summer, or representatives of Ollie lied to a lot of people last summer, and I think people will say, well, Henderson's checked out, Lingard's checked out, Pogba's checked out, Cavani's checked out, Martial's gone, Donny's gone. I ain't got a problem with that. There's a lot of players that have checked out. I mean, Lingard's been given opportunities by Rangnick. He's been crap in nearly every game he's played. He just doesn't look interested. Maybe he's trying to not get an injury. I don't know. Pogba, after a bright start, seems to have regressed a little bit as well. But let's not forget, this is not Rangnick's issue. It's an inherited issue. These contracts have been run down. That's got to be on the board. Let's not forget last summer, Dean Henderson was told he was going to be the number 1. This is according to certain outlets. Lingard was told to stay. He could have gone to West Ham. You're going to get game time. He didn't. Mata stayed. You're going to get game time. He didn't. Donny stayed. You're going to get game time. He didn't. So there's at least 4 or 5 players. Eric Bailly was told to sign a new contract because he was going to get game time. He didn't. We almost always must remember the players have to take a lot of responsibility this season, and they've no way represented what Manchester United should be. But we know for a fact there's 5 or 6 players that were basically told they were going to get first team football in the summer and didn't get it. They were lied to. And I look back to Luke Shaw's comments after the game yesterday, and people are like, oh, get rid of him, this, that and the other. Have you ever considered something that I mentioned probably about a year ago? You, the fans, don't like the board and you don't like the owners. And now you don't like some of the players because they've not been good enough on the pitch. That's absolutely fine. Why do you think the players go to training on a Monday morning with a lunchbox and an apple for Ed Woodward or Richard Arnold or the Glazers? They don't. There's a lot of players at Man United who love you, the fans, but can't stand the way the club's run. They are not stupid, some of them. They feel what you feel about how the way that club is run. And also, remember, these are people who are actually paid by that club and are expecting, like Man City, to get their contract renewed 2 or 3 years before their contract runs down, and are actually told, we're not going to renew your contract. Look at what happened with Ander Herrera. Ander Herrera was a good servant to the club. They let his contract run down, and eventually he just went, up yours, I've got an offer, I'm going. So we sometimes forget that some of these players, and maybe Luke Shaw's referring to the club, Luke Shaw's waiting for a contract. Maybe when he says, when I play for England, I feel wanted. Maybe that's not to do with the fans. I thought about it last night. I mean, obviously, I went live literally within a minute or two of him actually saying what he said. I thought about it last night, and I was like, I think he's actually talking about the club. I think he's talking about the club, that his contract's running down, and when he's at England, they make him feel wanted, and at United, he doesn't feel wanted. And I think he's talking about his contract. And people will say, well, he's on a good enough contract, but ultimately, the club does not value its players, and it also doesn't give a platform for its players to go and win trophies. So maybe Luke Shaw's talking about that, because I'll tell you for free, there's a lot of players in that club who don't like the way the club is run. They love the club, they love the fans, they love wearing the shirt, but they don't love the way the club is run. So sometimes the players share your feelings towards how the club is run. If we get Poch, he will spend a fortune to paper over the cracks. Ten Hag will trim the fat and rebuild the club. It's a no-brainer. I completely agree with you on that one, Dasbo. And yeah, in relation to Cavani, yeah, I would let him go. I would. Chris says, I think that United will give him a contract, but they prefer to stretch the time just so the media and the fans will know the aspiring coach is more desperate to get the job. And Luke Shaw not happy because Telles is ahead of him now. I don't think he is, Alan. I don't think he is. I think Rangnick prefers Luke Shaw, to be honest with you. And I think that will be proved next week. But that's not where I was really coming at from anyway. Sean Turner says, yeah, but there's a difference between us and the players. They can put good performance on behalf of us, and I don't care about Shaw's comments. I'm bothered about his awful performances. Hey, I'm not giving a get out of clause. I'm not giving a get out away. I'm not giving a release clause to Luke Shaw or any player. They've been terrible this year, and they've got to take responsibility for that. And I said that last night. Also, Paul Pogba came out as well, didn't he? I saw something from a French outlet last night, quotes from Paul Pogba, basically saying the same as Luke Shaw, that when you come away and play for your country, it's more enjoyable and it's a break from the stress of Manchester United. And look, Paul Pogba's leaving, and I don't really have a problem with a player saying they prefer international football to playing for Manchester United, if that's what they are saying, because ultimately it just exposes the fact that it's a holiday. Going and playing for your country is a holiday. There's far less pressure. You're with your mates. A lot of these mates you've been playing with since you're a teenager at under 18 level and all sorts. It's like going on a holiday, and the pressure's a lot lower in international football. For teams like France and England, you play a lot of deadbeat teams where the worst you're going to do is draw. When you play a game and you lose, you don't play again for 3 months anyway. So there's not really loads of stuff going on. Ultimately, it just exposes the fact that these players have weak mentalities at Manchester United, and maybe that's been eroded. Maybe they've just given up. Maybe they've downed tools. Maybe they've checked out. But there's a weak... I think when... It's very easy to say that United players have got a weak mentality, because it's true. But everybody's weak mentality will be unique to them. Some players will have a weak mentality because they don't know how to win. Some people will have a weak mentality because they've had it ground out of them. If you look at Ronaldo, he might end up with a weak mentality at United. Not because he's got one, because he's a goat of the game, but because he comes to United, realises what a shithole it is, and realises no matter how hard he works, he's banging his head up against the brick wall. And therefore, he takes that mentality onto the pitch, which gives him a weak mentality. It's a frustrate. Look at Bruno. He's got a weak mentality this season. He's not a weak mentality player. He gives everything. He tries hard. He's been a good player for us. But this season he has a weak mentality because he's frustrated. Frustration is a weak mentality. Bottling is a weak mentality. The inability to actually be a winner is a weak mentality. Downing tools is a weak mentality. Not trying is a weak mentality. I've seen players not try. I've seen players get too frustrated. I've seen players who can't win. I've seen players who don't even want to be here. That's 4 different strands of weak mentality. But people just go, well, they've got a weak mentality. But actually, there are levels to it. And you could probably give me another 4 examples of what a weak mentality is. Bottling it when they're good players, but on the big occasion they bottle it. There's so many strands to this. So I think people say weak mentality and they think, oh, you're being offensive. Ultimately, it's an explanation for people's poor form. And I think Bruno's an example of a player with weak mentality this year, because he's allowed his frustration to get the better of him. And that's weak. That is weak. We need to put pressure this week from a footballing point of view. On a football pitch, I think Bruno has dropped because he's allowed his frustration to take over, and we've seen it. And you look at João Felix or someone like that for Atletico Madrid, he wasn't getting free kicks. He's not shouting and screaming and moaning and everything like that. He just gets on with it. That's an elite mentality that these players need to learn. We need to put pressure this week for the new manager, says Arjun. I don't think as a fan base we can do any more. I think that we've made it very clear what we want. Maybe that's a bit self-righteous. Some people would say, oh, look at them, they're so arrogant, they think they can influence the club. I think you can influence the club. I think you've influenced the club before. And I think the fans have spoken. They want Erik ten Hag. And the worst thing you can do is just accept and be quiet that they carry on getting Pochettino. They need it. You know, whether you're replying to tweets, whether you're talking about it on social media, with your friends or anything like that. The fans have just got to keep pushing what they want. And the club need to listen to that and take it on board, because as I said before, it's for the many, not the few. There are a few people in and around United pushing for Pochettino. They should not be listened to over the majority who genuinely feel this is the right thing to do to appoint Erik ten Hag and move forward. And ultimately, if you've tuned in a little bit late, the headline is that Erik ten Hag is waiting for the job on Manchester United. He said it's not about spending money, it's about building the team in the vision that he has and getting them playing the right brand of football from top to bottom and gradually taking this football club back on a phase-by-phase approach. And that is exactly the way to do it. I think other managers are going to go, what's my checkbook? How much can I get Harry Kane? This, that and the other. Ten Hag is the right choice at the right time. It doesn't mean he's going to be successful, but he's the right choice at the right time. It's a new path. It's a turning away from all the mistakes of the past, and we should be embracing that, and the football club should be pushing that. So if the fans are putting pressure on the football club to do it, I think that's only a good thing, because sometimes you've got to shout loud for them to hear what you want. And I think the fans have been very good at that over the last week or two, and hopefully the club are listening, because they will reap the benefits of positivity if they appoint Erik ten Hag. In the short term, they will do. And surely that's something they want when there's rumblings of talks of protests and everything else again. Anyway, we'll see what happens. We've got the 8 o'clock show tonight. Don't forget the link in the video description for That's Football. I'm doing a Formula 1 watch along at 6 o'clock tonight. Enjoy whatever you're doing today, and let's see what happens. My prediction is we're going to get a few more briefs from the people close to United, plus maybe Romano or someone like that as well, in the next 24 hours, probably even today. So let's watch this space. Thanks everyone for watching. Please smash a like on the video. We're nearly at 1,000 likes. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you at 8 o'clock tonight or 6 o'clock for the F1 watch along on That's Football. Links in the description. We've got Ricky on tonight. I'll speak to you in a bit.